welcome to episode 29 of All the Stitches. This is a channel about quilting, cross stitch, needlework, knitting, whatever other crafty thing I may be up to. My name is Colleen and I'm coming to you from the Lakes region of New Hampshire in the United States. First of all, for those returning viewers, I've been gone a long time, haven't I? I looked it up and my last video was made in February. It is now August 1st of 2022, so it's been a while. Hopefully I'll remember how to do all this. A couple of new things, and that is I'm recording from my iPhone instead of my computer. I have to look in a different place. It's very strange. Hopefully I don't look too strange sitting here looking off into goodness knows where, but I'll give this a try. Let's see what else. This is because it's been so long since I've done this. I have some knitting, cross stitch, and some quilting all done from last winter right up until today. So that's what this one's going to be. That is what this video will be about, and that is some finishes, some works in progress, and some plans for the future. And since our puppy Pete is, if you've been here before, you know all about Pete. Pete's a black lab. He's sleeping right now. Luckily, he takes long naps, but I'm going to give you a Pete update at the end of this video so that if you're not a dog person, you don't need to listen. I'm going to jump right in because I think I may just have a limited amount of time to record this. So here we go. I think I'm going to start with my knitting, and this would be, I've tried to go back to what I didn't show you, and hopefully I'm not repeating something. But this was done in time for St. Patrick's Day. These socks, they were made from yarn from the Cozy Knitter. It's a self-striping yarn. I don't remember the name of the colorway, but they were also, I had the yarn cranked by someone who makes sock tubes, so you get this long tube, and then I added the cuffs, and I added the afterthought heel and the toe. I should mention, as always, underneath this video there's a down arrow, and the description of anything that I talk about will be listed down below in the description box. So that is number one finish. Number two are these socks. This is a pattern, I shouldn't cover it up. This was a pattern known as, or called, the Rainy Day Socks. I loved it. I loved it so much. And then added to that was this sock set made by Moonglow Fibers. And it's just the most beautiful moody shades of blue and gray. And I just had to do those. So did I say Rainy Day Socks? I think it is called April Showers. That's the pattern. Again, in the description box below. Oops, sorry. My next knitting finish was this shawl. Very simple, sort of scarf-like shawl with the pointy corners. All garter stitch. The yarn is from Lumberjack Yarns. So I would wear, it's very hot. I'm probably like most of you. It is, really steamy here, but I'm going to just show you quickly. I'd wear it something like this. I do a better job. Kind of a fun, very fun pattern, very easy, simple garter stitch, and it used up a whole skein of yarn. I can't remember the name of it. I will put it below the pattern. I first saw this in Carla Knits podcast. She test knit this pattern, and I thought, oh, that would be a great way to use up Biscornu yarn, and especially it was yarn that I won from Carla from one of her early videos. So I thought that was just a perfect result for that yarn and pattern. So my next big knit is this sweater. This is called Sheep Happens. It's a pattern from Drops Design. The yarn is Garnstudio. And I've wanted to make this sheep sweater for so long. I finally got to it, and I'm so happy with it. I have to say it came out a little bit big, but I think it's, you know, it's definitely wearable. And I will insert some pictures onto this video so you can see better. The one thing, if anyone is interested in this pattern, the one thing I would say is that I think the instructions, maybe it's just me and that's very possible, but but I think the instructions are a little bit off for sizing. I essentially made the yoke twice and then realized the first time how huge this sweater was. So I dropped down a needle size and I dropped down a size of a sweater, and it was still rather large. And in fact, I left out this section with the little white dots. I left out a whole repeat because I knew that it was just getting, you know how a yoke sweater can get a little too big under the arms? It was getting big, getting long. So I left out that repeat, and honestly, I could have left out another one, I think. But I am really happy with this sweater, and I'm glad I can check it off of my list because I've wanted to do it for so long. Now I'm going to skip over to cross stitch. I think because of Puppy Pete, I don't spend as much time in front of my sewing machine anymore. So I've transitioned that, at least for the moment, to a lot of needlework, but I find myself really drawn to kind of cross stitch right now. So that's what I'm doing a lot of. So I have a lot of results back to last winter. So hope you don't mind that it's an unseasonal podcast, but there you go. Having said that, this is not kind of cross stitch, but I'll show you anyway. This little banner, I did this after last Christmas, but I wanted it done for next Christmas, and I thought I could just hang it on the mantle or something like that. But it's again, I'll find the details and put it below. But it was a kit, and it came with just about everything you need, including the background fabric, so that blue fabric that has the little snowflakes on it. That was a printed fabric. And then you appliqued all the little characters with wool. So I did some wool applique, very simple. Added the buttons, and the different buttons really, and the little bells on the reindeer. I think they just added so much character. There was some embroidery as well, just very little. And then you make this little banner, and the back, it came with the fabric and for everything, and the back I used a little flannel. But I just love it. I'm all ready for next Christmas. I don't know about you, but I'm all ready for fall already. It's only August 1st, and it's too hot for me. So that's one finish. Now kind of cross stitch, I promise. Here's the first one. This is a piece called Welcome Winter, of course, as you can see. And I believe this was done on, I never can tell the difference, either 16 or 18 count Aida. The pattern is from Primrose Cottage Stitches. And these are such simple and easy little pieces to finish. I've been trying to do some small seasonal pieces just to have out in a little bowl or something for each season. I finished this by putting a backing of fabric. My opening to stuff it was here, so I covered it over with my 3 pines in wool and stitched them down. Doesn't that look nice and frosty? Then I did this little pillow, Let It Snow, again by Primrose Cottage Stitches. I love their patterns. They're very cute, easy to do, and very satisfying. Could be a little ornament, but I made it as a little pillow for that little winter bowl that I'm planning. Here's the back, just some snowy fabric. And I finished the edges with these miniature pom-pom trims by Lady Di. What is it called? Lady Di Designs, something like that. She's on Etsy. She has all these little trims. This was a lot of fun. Good way to find a way to hold this. This is what is called a Biscornu. It was new to me. I've seen them, but I didn't know they actually had a name. I just thought it was a pincushion. But you can see it has a top and a bottom. Very simple cross stitch. It was done on a 14 count Aida, which went really quickly. And then the way you sew it together, it's hard to describe, but you sew it so that you look at it and you say that can't possibly go together. But it does go together, and you sew it together. You stitch it together by hand. You stuff it, and then put a button top and bottom and stitch it through to squish it through. And I don't think I'll use it as a pincushion. It's too cute to put holes in, but I just love it. This is a pattern from, here it is, Little Dove Designs on Etsy. She has a lot of nice patterns on her Etsy shop. Okay, next is, we've turned to spring. Here is another Primrose Cottage Stitches design. I did this early in spring. It just felt so springy and cute. And I decided with this one to do it on as a flat fold. So this is, I believe it's foam core board. It could be a piece of matting, mat, I'm not sure. And then, no, I think the backing has foam core board. The cross stitch part is been stretched over a mat, a piece of mat cut to size. And then I trimmed it with more of those little Lady Dot Creates, that's the name of it. And then I thought, this little bow, I just happened to have this little piece of ribbon and it was so perfect. Plus it covered up where the pom-poms meet. It's always never quite looks right to me. So that worked out just fine. But I think that's adorable. It was done on a 25 count Laguna, I think, in this sort of dove gray. Here's the back. The back I used a piece of scrapbook paper and glued that down. My next one is also for spring, and it's this little pillow. This is the Welcome Spring design from, guess who? Primrose Cottage Stitches. A little hard to see. I use the same background cloth, the 25 count, as this one. I thought they would sit well together. And yeah. And then I made a little pillow out of it. Just used some little quilting cottons that I had. And that's it for my finished counted cross stitch pieces, my FFOs, fully finished but I have some, well, I'm going to show you, oh yeah, I might as well show you. I'll show you my finished cross stitch, but not fully finished, so they're not framed or anything. I don't think I showed you this. It's possible I did, but you know, that was a long time ago now. So I finished last year's Prairie Schooler Santa. How cute he is with the raccoon and the little fox and the owl. I have two more that I have finished in the past, and I'm going to put them together in like a small quilted banner. And the two others also have animals, so I thought there was a theme to this one. There will be a theme to this one. I love these Prairie Schoolers. Now we're in summer, so I just finished, hot off the press, I finished the Primrose Cottage Stitches Welcome Summer design. Very bright and cheery. And I haven't decided. I may do the same thing as with the spring and make a little pillow, or I might make a flat fold out of it. Not quite sure, which is why I put it aside for now. This is on, I believe, 16 count Ada. Next is, this was so much fun. I just really love this stitch for some reason. This was Heartfelt. It was a stitch along held by Fat Quarter Shop. The cross stitch pattern is still available on the website. It is a free pattern. They just asked you to make a donation to Make-A-Wish Foundation, which I did. And then they released it. They released first the borders, then each month they released another row. I really love this pattern. I love doing it. There was something so satisfying, and it was very hard to put down. I love the cloth. This also came from Fat Quarter Shop. I love the little checkerboard effect of it. And I love the floss, which I would never have picked in a million years, those colors, especially that lime green. But it was the called for colors, and I just went and bought the set of them. And I'm so happy I did. Very different set of colors for me, but I really, really enjoyed this stitch. They also came out with a quilt pattern of the same kind of pattern. I'm probably not going to do that because there's just too much in the quilting world that I want to do right now. Okay, that's my kind of cross stitch. At the end here, I'm going to show you some of the things that I have on the go, projects I'm in the middle of, projects that I want to make in the next few months. But I almost forgot my quilts. I can't believe I nearly forgot my quilts. Here is one, and I will put pictures up so you can see the whole thing. But just for now, I'll just show you this. This is a baby quilt. Whoops. That I made for the obedience, the dog obedience trainer that we have for Pete. And she was a lovely, lovely girl who had a baby in April. And here we are in August, and I still have the quilt here. It's all ready to go. I just have to deliver it. And part of me was trying to hold it and wait for the to make a video before I brought it to her. But here's the label I did for her baby. And of course, there was no Labrador on this fabric, so I had to add a picture of Pete to the label. This fabric is just phenomenal. And I feel like I was very lucky to find it. It came from fabric.com. And it was a really nice piece of fabric. Sometimes the quality, you don't really know what you're getting, but this was a nice one. My Quilt Guild had a challenge. And the challenge was you chose a photograph, sight unseen. The envelopes were all sealed. And I chose an envelope, and there was a photo inside. It was cut out from a magazine. And it was a photo of a barn, as you can see, with a very brilliant blue sky. In addition, there was 2 fabric samples. So you had to use these 2 colors, and can you believe, I mean, I don't know that this was planned, but these colors are exactly what's in this photo. So you had to use these 2 colors along with, and get inspiration from the photo. So that's what I did. And I made this. So here's the story behind this quilt. I knew I wanted to make a barn, and the barn block itself came from a Lori Holt book. I think one of her it was, I think, her first farm girl books. So that's where the barn came from. The trees, I knew I wanted to incorporate 3 pine trees. And if you've watched before, you know I'm obsessed with the Louise Penny books that take place in the fictional Quebec town of 3 Pines. So I worked those in. I couldn't decide what to do on the top. And one day I was outdoors with Pete and a flock of geese came by and I said, oh, I could do flying geese on the top. So I did that. This part, this is hard to show you. I had to make a barn quilt for the barn. I did this because at the time I was making this, my friend Rosalie was selling an old family farm. And I loved visiting her and her husband Ken there. And she always had a quilt hanging on her porch, an old farmer's porch. And they each had made a barn quilt for the sides of their barn, painted them. So I kept thinking of her when I was working on this. So I decided on a barn quilt with her in my thoughts. I made it as a separate little quilt that you can remove. I decided on the sunflower pattern representing Ukraine, because it's their state, it's their country's flower. Of course, I had to put Pete sitting in front of the barn. It's a picture of Pete when he was a puppy. And it was, I printed it on fabric and then basically glued it on there. And then, of course, these are the fields and the grass. So I was really happy with that. And I don't often do challenge quilts, but I had so much inspiration for this one that I decided to go for it. So here is something I'm not going to be able to show you, but I'm going to show you a piece of it, and then I will insert a picture. This was a huge finish for me because I finished my Patches of Blue, oh boy, you can't see any of it, Patches of Blue sampler. Which obviously you can't see. So I'm going to put in a picture now. And this is the Patches of Blue sampler created by Edja Sitar from Laundry Basket Quilts. And as I've said many times before, as I was working on this, it was a 2018 block of the month. She used her book Patches of Blue and took a block pattern from each quilt in the book to create a sampler. And I did this over the course of a year. I had a few other friends that were doing something similar. They were actually doing another quilt, but we decided to do it sort of together and split it up through the year and each do a block every month. And then I had another friend, Barbara, who was doing this same quilt, but in red and white. And it was stunning. And Barbara, I know you watch. you might want to get going on that because it is now August of the second year. Anyway, it was beautiful. Hers was beautiful too. And I'd love to see it. What else do I have? I think that is all. You wouldn't believe the mess that I have here. But anyway, I think that is all. I think what I will do is I have some plans for the things I want to make within the next few months. And I have some works in progress that I want to show you. But I think I'm going to, most of that's downstairs. I'm going to go down, check on Pete, the puppy. And I'm going to lay those out and just talk you through everything that I have going on there. Okay, I'm back. I forgot to show you one more finish. This was a counted cross stitch piece that I started on what would have been Betty White's 100th birthday. I started it in her honor because she was a really big supporter of humane societies and rescue animals. So I did this kind of cross stitch. I found this wonderful backboard on Etsy. Can't remember the name. I'll put it below, but see, it's just a little house shape. I finished it, and then I added a little window. I had to have Pete coming out of the, peeking out of the window. That's his picture. And so that is another kind of cross stitch finish. Okay, so here are some of my works in progress. These are all of my works in progress, as well as some plans for the near future. I'll start here. I've been working on this habitation throw for a while, though I put it in timeout, but it's back in the rotation. Here are all this is made from yarn minis that I have put together in a magic ball. And I love this pattern. This is my major work in progress right now. I pretty much work on this every night. And I am about 60% done. Here is my monthly project. This is the Prairie Schooler, a Prairie Year by the Prairie Schooler. The pattern calls for these separate little ornaments, but I decided to put it together as one piece. And then I'm working on one every month. This is August, but I decided to go ahead and finish it. But I'm going to hold off, I think, and wait, and then work on September, October, November, December in the months, when I'm in the month. But love this pattern. Here is, oh boy, here are big plans for the future. I love this Quaker Dasher and Dancer kind of cross stitch pattern. And it's a big jump for me because I do a lot of, easier pieces. And I'm going to give this a shot. You can see the intricacy. But I love that it's all one yarn, or one floss, one color. And I think that will be a lot of fun. That's the cloth I'm going to use. Hopefully I can see it. And here's another that I have in mind that I have ready to go. It's a Teresa Kogut pattern called For the Love of Nature. And I love this. I think I can just sort of pick away at this over time, one little motif at a time. And I think that'll be fun. I have some, I think it calls for 32 count linen, but I'm going with 16 count Aida. It's a really nice soft cloth. It might not be Aida, it might be something else, but it's a very soft cloth, and those are the threads I'm going to use. I'm looking forward to starting that. And yes, I'll probably start these around the same time, and just as the mood happens, I'll work on what I feel like working on. This is an active knitting project. It's called the Advent Wallop. And it's just a long cowl that gets doubled. and it's made with Advent minis that I've collected. This particular set is from Ducky Darlings. I've had for a couple years, maybe a few years, and decided to go ahead and use them. No point in collecting them. But I'm putting yarn overs when I start a new color. I do a row of yarn overs just to give it a little more interest. I guess it is in the pattern, but they only did it in a small section. I decided to do it in the whole cowl. Continue on with knitting. These are a pair of mittens that have kind of stalled. It's the Heart of the Forest mitten pattern by Sophia Campbell-Bourne, and I love them, but they require a lot of concentration, and I just haven't been able to pick them up for a while. But you can see I just love these little trees, and on the palm of each mitten is a little heart. Here's a work in progress when I have sewing time. These are just half square triangles sewn into these hourglass shapes, and it's just going to be sort of a random half square triangle quilt. I used a set of fat quarters. You use 20 fat quarters, and I used a set from one of Kim Deal's Christmas lines. I love her fabric. This was started as a quilt along with Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch. Elizabeth has a YouTube video with that name, Elizabeth Ann Can Stitch, and she did a series of, I think, 3 or 4 tutorials if you wanted to sew along with her. I said, geez, I have sets of fat quarters. I really need to do something with them. So that's what I'm going to do. I have all of the hourglass shapes put together, and I just have to, I have some I have to cut apart, but I have to just lay them out and decide how to sew them. Once I finish this, I'm going to go on to this. Oh, I can't wait. I haven't made a sampler quilt in so long, probably since my first quilt, my first large quilt. And I saw this quilt on Pumpkin Hollow Quilts, her video. It's a Temecula Valley Quilt Company, or Temecula Quilt Company pattern. It was a block of the month, but she, at least fairly recently that I am aware of, put the pattern up for sale as a whole on her website, Temecula Quilt Company. Olivia from Pumpkin Hollow Quilts made this and has this hanging behind her in the summer, and I love it. I have all the fabrics ready, and I just need to finish this one and get going on this. So I put the patterns in a binder. This is my friend Sue. She did this, and then of course I said I have to do that too. Just to kind of organize myself, because I tend to be all over the place. These are a lot of the fabrics that I got. I was able to get some of this line, and then I filled in with what I had on my shelf. But you can see I'm going to just do this as I feel like it, you know, cut a couple blocks, put them aside, and sew as I have time. But you can see, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to do. I can't wait to start this. I'm going to not go through all of them because they're a paid-for pattern, but there you have it. That's my lineup for the next few months, unless I see a squirrel and I need to chase that squirrel. But it's the fun of it, isn't it? I know I'm not alone. I know there's a lot of people like me out there that are doing the same thing. So enjoy your projects too, and I'll see you next time. And for those interested in hearing about my little Pete, well, Pete is a black lab. We got him right after Labor Day last year. He just turned 1. July 2nd, he turned 1. and I can't believe it. I can't believe how fast he's grown up, and he's so big. He's so huge. I'm going to put in some pictures here so you can see him, because he's much cuter than I am. And you can see his growth spurt in just a few months. He went from this cute little black velvet puppy to this giant male Labrador. And he's a huge amount of work. He is a very active dog. He goes from 100 miles an hour to 0 because he will sleep for long periods of time. But when he's awake, he's up and running. He's keeping us both very busy, so we just try to keep him active and interested in things. His favorite thing in the world is a frozen peanut butter cone that he will work on. There's peanut butter and pumpkin in it, and he will work on that for quite a while and be quiet. So, but he's doing well. He's doing better. He's a lot of dog, and as we're older, it's not that easy, but he is doing better. He's calming. I wouldn't say he's calm, but he is calming down. He's easier to deal with. He still has his crazy hour after dinner where I think it's because we've had it. We're kind of done for the day, and he just thinks it's a good time to play. So, but he settles right down, and he's becoming a good citizen. We're really working on trying to socialize him because it's been tough. We live in a very quiet community. It's really a summer community, so for months he didn't really see a lot of people or a lot of dogs. So it is challenging, and it's something we need to work harder on, I think. But hopefully we'll get there. We got an English lab intentionally because everybody says an English lab is more calm, more of a house pet, or more of a family pet, I should say, rather than a field lab or an American lab, because they're more bred. Their genetics are more for not hunting, but they're gun dogs and retrieving and everything. Well, this guy, I don't think he's calm, but he's young. He's one. And, we have to remind ourselves that he's still young. He really is still a puppy, even though he looks like an enormous dog. But anyway, that is the Pete update. And I think I'll leave it at that. I could go on and on, but I think this is quite long enough. I hope to get back to this soon. It may be after the weather cools off and maybe we're into fall and life gets a little easier. But I hope you're doing well. I hope you will let me know in the comments below what you're working on, and especially in the summer. Do you do a lot of crafting? Do you knit in the summer? Do you stitch? Do you quilt? Or do you take the summer off from it? I know I have friends that go either way. So I'd love to know what you're doing. I love to get comments. I respond to all of them. And until next time, I hope all of your stitches bring joy.